I am Phil Sweetley. If you've ever heard of me, you know that I was the first African-American woman to ever publish a book. This book was called The Poems on Various Subjects, Religious and Moral. I was born in Gambia near Senegal, which is right here in West Africa. I was taken from my family at the age of 7 by strangers. These bad people took me away from my home to become a slave. I was taken to Boston, Massachusetts, which is right here, where Mr. Wheatley bought me for his wife, Mrs. Wheatley. I was her slave, but Mrs. Wheatley did not treat me that way. Mr. and Mrs. Wheatley named me after the boat I came to America on. This boat was named the Phyllis. Because I was raised as one of the family members, I was given the last name Wheatley. The Wheatleys had a daughter, Mary, and a son, Nathaniel. Mary taught me many wonderful things: English, history, geography, the Bible, and religion. I was a very fast learner. Within a month of arriving in America, I learned how to speak and write in English. By the time I was 12 years old, I could read Greek and Latin. Because Mr. Wheatley thought an education was important for everyone, I ended up receiving an amazing education. This was unheard of for most girls, especially a slave girl. Once the Wheatleys saw that I had special talent in literature, they did not make me serve as a slave any longer. Instead, they insisted that I kept up with my studies. My life was changing in big ways. I became a Christian and was baptized at Old South Meeting House. Both reading and writing poetry became very, very important to me. My first poem was written when I was 13. These poems were not published at this time, but I had fun writing them. Years later, I became well known after I had dedicated a poem to a preacher, George Whitefield. He had died, and I had written a poem about him. This was the beginning of my professional career. When the publishers in Boston would not publish my poems, the Wheatleys sent me to London, where the Countess of Huntingdon helped me to find a publisher who was willing to print my book. No other African-American woman had ever done this before. This made me a famous historical figure. In my life, I wrote a total of 145 poems. The most famous poem was for President George Washington. My personal favorite is called On Being Brought from Africa to America. I'd love to read it to you. "'Twas mercy brought me from my pagan land, taught my enlightened soul to understand that there's a God, that there's a Savior too. Once our redemption neither sought or knew, some view our sable race with sore eye. Their color is a diabolic dye. Remember Christians, Negroes, black as pain, may be refined and join the angelic train." Later in my life, in 1778, I married John Peters. My friends did not like the man I chose to marry. I had 3 children, 2 of which died as babies. We lived in Boston in a rent-out apartment. We were so poor that we could not afford to take care of our home, our children, or any other things we needed. My remaining child and I both became ill from the filthy living conditions of our home. In this sad place, I died in poverty in 1784. 3 hours after my death, my last living child died also. Although my life ended in a sad way, I'm glad that my poems have brought joy to many people over the years. Thank you for letting me share my life story.